Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how professional macro investors really see the world. We're going to break down the three key signals they watch, the ones that let them cut right through all the noise you hear every day.
All right, so let's just jump right in with a really big question, one that kind of challenges everything we're told about how markets are supposed to work. You hear about these things all day long, but for the pros, the institutional answer, it's something else entirely. And it all starts with this one single powerful idea that pretty much flips conventional wisdom right on its head. Let that sink in for a second. This one concept is the absolute key to understanding the first and, honestly, the most important piece of the whole macro puzzle. So forget the headlines for a minute. The real story is always about the money itself.
Okay, so let's dive into this first pillar, liquidity. You can think of it as the dominant force in the market, right? It's the tide that either lifts all the boats or leaves them stranded on the beach.
So what is it really? Well, at its core, liquidity is just the total amount of money that's sloshing around the financial system, looking for a place to go. And it's controlled by central banks using two main levers: quantitative easing, or QE, that's kind of like turning on the money printer, and quantitative tightening, or QT, which is, you guessed it, turning it off.
And this slide just illustrates it perfectly. You can see the two sides of the liquidity coin right here. On the left, you've got that massive expansion of the Fed's balance sheet during QE. That's just pure money being pumped directly into the system. And then on the right, you see the exact opposite, QT, where that money is being steadily pulled back out.
Now, how this actually works is so crucial. See, QE doesn't just stimulate the real economy right away. What it does is inflate asset prices first. By buying up all those bonds, central banks basically force investors to go buy riskier stuff, like stocks. QT does the exact opposite, and when you combine that with raising interest rates, well, you get a really toxic environment for the markets.
And make no mistake, this is not just a U.S. Federal Reserve story. This is a global tide. You've got major central banks all over the world pulling liquidity out of the system at the same time, and that has absolutely massive implications for asset prices everywhere.
So it really boils down to this non-negotiable rule for the pros. The story of the day, whatever it is, it just doesn't matter if the flow of money is moving against you. You always have to follow the money.
Okay, so that's the engine of the market, right? Liquidity. Now let's talk about the market's vital sign. Let's look at its heartbeat, credit spreads.
I want you to think of credit spreads just like a heartbeat monitor in a hospital. A narrow, steady spread. That's a calm, healthy heartbeat. But a wide, erratic spread? That means the patient is in serious distress. It's a pure, unfiltered signal of fear. It's basically the extra interest companies have to pay to borrow money compared to the super safe government. When that gap gets bigger, it means fear is rising. Now, this is so important. This is why credit is a leading indicator for stocks. Bond investors, they do the hard, kind of boring work. They're analyzing balance sheets. Their whole job is to worry about getting their money back. Equity investors, on the other hand, they're often chasing the next exciting story. So who do you think figures out there's a problem first?
Here's exactly what a healthy heartbeat looks like. These are what we call tight credit spreads. You can see them here in 2021 and early 2024. When these lines are down low like this, it's signaling very little fear, easy financing conditions. It's a total green light for stocks.
And then you have this. This is the exact opposite. This is a market heart attack. Just look at that massive spike in 2008. When spreads blow out like this, it's a crystal clear warning that something is fundamentally broken deep inside the financial system. For stocks, it was a screaming sell signal.
So the rule here is incredibly simple, but it is so powerful. You should never be aggressively long stocks when credit spreads are getting wider. That's like trying to sprint when you're having chest pains. It's just not a good idea.
Okay, so we have the fuel, that's liquidity. And we have the heartbeat, that's credit. The third pillar tells us how we should actually behave in the current environment by understanding the market's personality, which is its volatility.
The key insight here is that volatility isn't just this series of random, knee-jerk reactions to news. The market actually operates in these distinct regimes. It's almost like a person switching between different moods.
And professionals classify the market into one of these three states. You've got the calm, low-vol regime, where the buy-the-dip strategy works beautifully. Then you have the chaotic, high-vol regime, where pretty much everything goes down together, and preserving your capital is the only thing that matters. And then there's that tricky, transitional regime in the middle, and that's where most traders just get chopped to pieces.
And you can see these regimes play out over decades. I mean, look at this chart.
You see these long periods where the VIX is just low and calm, and then boom, these sudden shifts into high volatility chaos. The market clearly switches personalities, and knowing which one you're dealing with is absolutely critical for survival.
Okay, so now we have the three pillars, but how do they all fit together? Because this isn't just three separate ideas. It's actually a causal chain, a logical loop that institutions monitor every single day. This right here, this is the macro loop. It flows logically from central bank policy all the way down to how stocks perform. And notice what's not at the top of that list: news and earnings. The flow of money is what comes first. It's not magic. It's just a logical, repeatable sequence.
And this is the ultimate takeaway. Each pillar gives you a very specific piece of the puzzle. Liquidity tells you when the environment is supportive or hostile. Credit tells you how bad the underlying stress actually is. And volatility? Well, that tells you how to size your positions, how much risk you can, or should, be taking. So the next time you look at the market, don't just ask, hey, what's the news? Instead, ask these three questions. What are the liquidity conditions? What are credit spreads doing? And what volatility regime are we in? Because now that you have this framework, you can start to build your own institutional-grade view of the markets. The only question left is, what is the market telling you right now?